Hello and welcome to a brand new edition of the Mumbai Manifesto. Hello and welcome to this third episode of the Mumbai Manifesto, where we deep dive into the magic and the madness that make up the city of dreams. Our topic for today, Mumbai's natural capital. We will discuss everything about Mumbai's rich environmental assets, its forests, its mangroves, the rivers, the Arabian Sea, and much more. To demystify the problems and challenges faced by Mumbai in the environmental sphere, we have with us Dr. Rakesh Kumar, former Director of the National Environmental Engineering Research Institute, NEERI, headquartered in Nagpur. Dr. Kumar and I go back a long way. He was my guide for my MSc thesis on the Mii River way back in 2003-2004. And pretty much every scientist or researcher who has worked on Mumbai's environment has had to interact with him at some point or the other. Whether you're a bureaucrat or a politician, if you've worked on Mumbai's environment, you've worked with Dr. Rakesh Kumar. Dr. Rakesh Kumar, welcome to the Mumbai Manifesto.
Thank you for having me.
Dr. Rakesh Kumar, let's begin with the burning question, the question of this century, climate change. Mumbai is a vulnerable city. We're a coastal city. Half our city is reclaimed. We have incessant rainfall. What are the key challenges that Mumbai faces vis-a-vis climate change? How grave is the situation today? And is there something that we can do proactively for a safer and a healthier tomorrow?
So I'll divide your question in two parts. One, of course, is how it's going to impact, and the other one, what we can do. And rightly so, I think what can be mitigated is not something which is in our hand. At least those people who are living in Mumbai can't possibly do too much. But when we want to prepare ourselves to deal with climate change, it's important that we understand what all can happen. And few things which people are now aware of, the flooding can happen, and therefore disruption in life will happen, and therefore electricity related issues will happen. So, people have discussed this part. What has not been discussed is how the health impact infrastructure will be suffering. The third very important thing which will happen is the energy consumption. Over a period of time, energy consumption is going to spiral like anything, because your 1 degree or 1.5 degree is a global average. But for a local person, when the humidity is high, you would be dealing with almost cooling additional 3 to 4 degree temperature. And that's a huge amount of electricity requirement for the city alone. When I say this, just go a little bit further. When you want to do cooling, that much heat you throw out in atmosphere. So the heat that we are throwing out, it goes to neighbors area, and that's where, due to high humidity and the temperature, you will have more mosquitoes breeding. Therefore, more malaria and more dengue cases. So this things are very, very complex to understand. The flooding part is something which a lot of people as engineers will tell you, we should have more dikes, we should have more tetrapods, we should try to have more protection of buildings that we have. But that's a very small component of it which you can deal with engineering. The other aspect will require a very different effort altogether.
Understood. So it's not something that can't be dealt with, but it is something that will require long-term investment in infrastructure.
Yes.
And there are several associated direct and indirect health impacts which we must be wary of as a cities. Dr. Kumar, you've been on so many committees which have been appointed by the government. I don't know if you can remember every one of them. But over the years, I have known that if there's something major that's happening and the government is consulting, then you have been a part of this. Along with you, there are some other stalwarts from the field of urban planning, perhaps economics, social science, who have also been part of these committees. The city is very blessed with amazing resources like yourself. But when we look at government action, on ground implementation, we are seeing often either inaction or we are seeing poorly planned and poorly implemented projects. So what is lost in translation? Where is the gap between the recommendation that is given and what we see on ground?
So that's the dilemma I think almost all cities and all government face, and that's a systemic problem. It is not very unique to Mumbai alone, but yes, since Mumbai has its own infrastructure, people, everything else which is required, which is in place, it would have done better, and in the past it has done better. Mumbai has been leader in the past on many things which were the first time. I would give an example, although it's not relating to the question that you asked. The PUC in India was initiated only in Mumbai, and after that become a central rule. It's part of Motor Vehicles Act. So it has been always initiator of something very good, innovative, new. Now the question comes that where we lose in translation, and that's the question which we all struggle with. I think in the government system, the memory of the decision taken in the past and implementation which is happening, taking cue of what all worked for us and what did not, is not being documented. And that's the reason why we start doing all over again the same thing, and that's why we lose time. People lose faith that you started this project so many years back and you're still struggling with it, and that's what also creates doubt in the mind of many implementing agencies over a period of time. To give an example, on Mumbai sewage disposal project, in BMC, earlier we used to be in touch with them on a regular basis. We realized that we knew more about their sewage disposal project than probably the department knows.
Correct.
It's the series of changes, the transfers, and all those things which happen administratively. They cripple the continuity, and that's where I feel that there has to be, I don't know whether it can be said at this stage, but it is important there is a body which is keeping track of the whole thing, that how things are happening. Something which is worked out, take pride in it. Something which is not worked out, accept it and then move on. Do learning and de-learning all the time.
It's also, it's very interesting you say this, because not only do you have to do it by agency, you have to do it intra-agency or inter-agency, because, for example, the Mii River, where you have been an advisor for so many decades, I would imagine, it has the BMC component, it has a MMRDA component. From somewhere, the airport authority is also involved. CWPRS is there. There are other advisory bodies as well. The challenge of keeping it all together and the memory. Hopefully, there will be some kind of a technology tool that will aid in this in the future. We'll move on. Dr. Kumar, our next question deals with carrying capacity of a different kind. When we speak of Mumbai's carrying capacity, we speak of the trains, the buses, the water supply, the sanitation, the sewerage. But Mumbai is a city that is incredibly blessed with natural capital. We're an island city. We have the Arabian Sea on all sides. We have an abundance of mangroves. We have flowing rivers. We have the Sanjay Gandhi National Park and other pockets of urban greens spread across the city. All these also have seen a deterioration if we look at it historically, post-independence to date, as urbanization has gone up. Some of the natural assets have suffered. Tree cover has gone down. Water pollution, air pollution, all these are problems that seem to be increasing year on year. What is the role of this natural capital in maintaining our, as individual Mumbaikars, how does it contribute to our quality of life? When it comes to natural capital, how do I justify keeping it intact or enhancing its value?
I think that is something which is being discussed internationally, and good that you pointed it out. It's not something which we didn't know, we all knew. It's just that we didn't value them. So now there are tools and techniques available that you could put a number to your natural assets. Although a lot of biodiversity experts and experts from the ecology side, they would say we cannot possibly give a number to such natural system. But it's important that when you want to take a policy decision and you want to communicate to decision maker why it makes sense to not disturb, say, 1 acre of mangrove for your so-called road widening, you need to use calculation in economic terms, in rupee terms. And there has been project engineering concepts where people have said that if you are doing a project for public goods, you must do cost benefit analysis. So now that tools are available, we must try to value them, and there are 2 ways to do it. One is direct benefit and the other one is indirect benefit. I can explain that to you is direct benefit is if someone is destroying it and is making a road and the land cost is direct benefit, right? Indirect benefit is all that air cleaning that it was doing, all that wastewater that it was cleaning over a period of time that it was doing, and also it was nurturing a lot of flora and fauna in that area. So those are indirect benefit which also could be quantified in current knowledge system, and that's what is needed now to communicate to people and as well as to the government.
People
what
understand
is that,
money.
What is that you are destroying and how much in terms of money you are losing.
Correct.
That's important.
I think money talks. And it's very interesting you mentioned, because that was part of our next question. Now, Mumbai is a mega city, but it is also a city of mega projects. Every project is in the tens of thousands of crores, each metro line is tens of thousands of crores. The coastal road is some 20,000 crores, All these are very large projects. So this cost benefit analysis you mentioned, I mean, one coral bed here, one little mangrove patch there, how can it compete against this? This is the first part of the question. Will it ever be able to justify this is such a big project and this is such a small natural asset, or something of that sort? That is, go David versus Goliath.
Yeah.
How does environment make its place? That is one. The second question is that there are things which are in Mumbai are grossly lacking. Housing. 6 out of 10 people stay in slums. The traffic congestion is horrible. The public transport can have so much improvement in it. When human beings' lives are being directly impacted by the lack of these facilities, how can one justify and say, no, but wait, we must clean the Mii River. It's important to the city. We must save the mangroves and we must clean the Arabian Sea. How is it possible to justify when the needs are so burning everywhere?
Yeah, so that's the question which we all can directly feel, that yes, we need to give priority to this. If someone is called to solve this problem, they will have to compare these two things, right? But it's also important that when we deal with projects, are they really helping all those people, larger group of people in the city? And that's the question, right? So I have a mega project which is basically trying to move A to B, certain number of people, right? So question to be asked is, are you moving people or are you moving cars? Right. So the moment you change your question, all these mega projects will undergo some changes.
Right.
So I need to say, if I am doing a transport project,
right,
I will say I want to move people from one place to another.
Right.
Right. Same thing goes for Mii River. I'm saying Mii River was a big drainage channel earlier also, which was a natural drainage channel. I may calculate on a current terms that has become sewage carrying channel, right? So if you go and see the livelihood of the people who used to be there in that area, who used to live on some fishing that they were doing it, right? For them it was not important that they earn crores for a livelihood. For them it was good enough that they earn whatever little, but they can be comfortable.
Sustain.
Now they are getting displaced. They don't know, they don't have the skill to do anything else, and you have simply transformed their lives in a negative way.
Right.
So when we want to do that, I want to clean up Mii River, I'm basically bringing back the nature there, and everyone who is talking about mega projects will also be benefited.
Correct.
So this is a saying which is true for most of the countries, which will also be true in our country as if you do it well. If the Mii River was cleaner, all the real estate prices next to it would be much more higher. So all those rich people would also get much better outcome out of this Mii River. Poor, of course, would be benefited. And when we talk about development in society, we have to take care of everyone. We can't be saying we are doing only for 3%, 5% of people. That's very important.
Very true, very true. Let's stick on the Mii Riverfront for some time. You've been a part of the Mii Redevelopment Authority as an advisor for many years. And of course, as a researcher, you would have worked countless times on the Mii in terms of its natural capital, its water quality, so on and so forth. It's not that we've not poured money, almost literally, into the Mii River.
Yes.
A lot of monies have gone. Maybe I think upwards of 2,000-3,000 crores or there. But I'm just throwing a number out there. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's anywhere. It's not far from this. What difference has it made? Is it that we do not put in enough money into the Mii River for it to get clean? Or what will it take? If you had to be the decision maker to make the decision on what should be the future of the Mii River, what would be your first steps?
Okay, so it's a very difficult question that you have asked. But yes, it's not something which can't be dealt with. People have cleaned rivers across the world depending upon their need and the desire. The issue is that about 1,200-1,300 crores which have been spent on Mii, as far as I know, they have been actually spent on making retaining walls. Whereas one-third or one-fourth of that, if it was spent on cleaning of the sewage which is entering into it, it would have solved the problem at least by 50% in the immediate short term. Simultaneously, we would have also looked at why it comes from where it comes. Why it comes is because you have slum pockets nearby. They don't have sewer lines in place. So those sewer lines could be constructed. They can be constructed and then connected to a sewage treatment plant. And then after constructing sewage treatment plant, release clean water in Mii River. So that was possible. It could, in my own rough estimate, it could have been very easily done in about 300 to 400 crores, which is possible.
Wow. So hopefully if some decision makers are listening in, please take this on as a priority, bringing in an interceptor sewer line, a small sewage treatment, decentralized sewage treatment facility, and give the city a clean flowing river. It will be an asset as any city with a flowing river already exists as an asset and an example for us to see. We'll move on to the next question. You mentioned about temperature rise. You mentioned about global warming and the need for heating, the need for cooling, and the consequent heating that happens, the heat island effect.
Yeah.
Mumbai has always been vulnerable to sea level rise because half our city is reclaimed. But how vulnerable is it? Like, how scared should we be? Suppose I have a house which is near the coastline. That is, most of Mumbaikars have a house near the coastline because we are, as a city, we are hardly 5 kilometers wide and we have the sea on all sides. So should I be worried that in the next 20 years my house will be underwater, or should I say no, this is the problem for my next generation, after 80 years my house will be underwater? How soon should I look at a horizon of getting worried?
So horizon is not in future, it's actually now. So if you see many buildings which are very close to the coast, they are experiencing huge erosion, and some of these buildings were not built with the intent of this kind of storm surges. So just to explain it a little bit better, many people understand that when the sea level rise will happen, the predicted numbers are by 2050 we will have 30 centimeter, by 2070 we will have 60 centimeter, some kind of number. So when you talk about these numbers, they look very small. 20-30 centimeters is only this much, right? And for that much people have taken care of. What is worrying for now, even today, is the storm surges. So during monsoon time, when your wind is strong and your storm surges, when you say tide rising, they actually go in an exponential way. So anything which could be even 20 centimeter will rise up to about 2 meters. that surge. And when that surge happens, the force is too high. So it can actually damage many of the infrastructure which are very close to the coast. The rest of the infrastructure which is inside, probably they'll get flooded. They will not be damaged so much. But the ones which are within the 100 meters, they are at risk even now. And therefore, they need to do audit of all these buildings and infrastructure which are very close to the coast. In 2004, when we did one...
Sorry to interrupt you, but when you're saying 100 meters, just for our audience, it is 100 meters from the highest high tide line.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Right.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No problem. So in 2004-5, we had done the first conference on climate change and health. And there is a paper which possibly we could share with others as well, where we looked at the damage which can happen due to climate change, sea level rise, and that was only calculated for about 200 meters from the coast, and that number is staggering. So one needs to be worried, and particularly more so for all those poor settlements which are very close to the coast. They can be simply wiped out in one of the strong surges if it happens.
It's Mumbai has a lot of informal settlements. I think 6 out of 10 people stay in informal houses. Can you dwell a little more on this particular aspect of vulnerabilities to climate change? How are the poor more vulnerable to climate change, whether it is flooding or heat island effect, that both of which are prevalent in Mumbai?
So one which I explained in terms of during the period when the extreme events will happen, right? So when people will be displaced, when the highest high tide and the storm surges happen. So that's the time when the housing will get impacted quite a bit. They will have to be displaced. They have to be, if the protection system is very accurate, people will be evacuated in advance, otherwise they could suffer. But what is happening is, which is even happening now, that some of the urban poor settlements, when they are being housed and the new so-called rehab system and not designed well without ventilation and light, the TB cases are much higher. And why is that happening? Because you have now poor ventilation, poor light, and this ventilation and poor light with this temperature rise that you see due to climate change is aggravating the problem. So TB alone in certain pockets of Mumbai, a study done by a group of doctors has shown that it's rising.
Wow.
And poor settlements.
Right.
So I'm saying the traditional way of thinking and communication which has happened till date, people are only talking about the flooding and they believe that it will happen for a few days and it will go away. The after effect and aftermath of the whole thing will last longer, much longer.
Right. One of the other chronic problems that Mumbai has faced is solid waste management. And I think it's been about 24 years now since the rules changed at a national level, the rules 2000, and segregation became enforceable, compulsory as a matter of fact. And pretty much it's been 24 years since Mumbai has been segregating waste. But it doesn't seem to be working. It seems to be failing. The quantity of waste that's going to the landfill each year almost has got an exponential trajectory now that it is. And land is the most precious resource that we have in Mumbai. Landfills are soon going to be over capacity. Some of them have been shut down already. Why has solid waste management not succeeded in Mumbai? We've tried, we can't blame the citizens every time. We've tried, a lot of people have worked very hard, a lot of campaigns, even the BMC has put in campaigns, but we're still generating waste, we're still not. Something's missing, something's wrong.
I think the reality is that as long as we live, waste will be generated, right? So if you do diagnostic of solid waste management, again, I just said, that history is very important. Mumbai used to have landfill site, or so-called in those days dumping ground, because awareness was not so much, but it was kind of dumping ground. It had so-called dumping a landfill facility in different parts of the city. So the transportation cost was less. You can generate and you can easily do it. But over a period of time, because you didn't plan it well, all the landfill facilities in the western side has been closed. Now you have only Devnar and Kanjurmarg operating. Mulund is also closed. So obviously these two are overloaded. That is one aspect of it. The question should be asked in a reverse way, that if I do segregation, what do I do next? So if I do segregation for wet waste, I should be able to generate compost. That's what is the ideal thing to do. But how do I use it? We haven't left enough open spaces where this compost will get used, and the numbers are large. So if you have 6,000 tons per day, right, and if 50%, and normally it is about 60%, if 50% is wet waste, of that only 20% will turn to be compost if you are doing composting.
Correct.
It's a staggering number to be used within the city.
Correct.
You will need to transport, which will not happen. So city like this, which is so dense, it is important that segregation and is combined with the technology process to take care of it end to end. You can't be doing one part and leave the other part, because there is incentive to mess with these mixing and then make unwanted money for this.
Correct.
If I can say so.
But Dr. Kumar, I mean, who's the onus for this? It's not everybody has the time, or people need to have this incentivized a little bit. Shouldn't it be the job of the government? Like, for example, if I am the government and it is costing me 20 rupees per kilo of solid waste to manage, from collection, transportation, processing to disposal, to pay the fees of the SWM department. And someone is willing to take away half that burden from my shoulders in terms of quantum of waste. Should I not be willing to part with some of that money and say, you have managed 50% of my waste, okay, I will be happy to pay you some amount, or I will buy the compost back from you as a guarantee. Somewhere the government needs to also step in to incentivize waste processing.
Government, particularly in solid waste sector, it is only the government which can solve this problem. People can participate, people can be taught how to do it, they can be forced, they can be fined. If you see the learning from many other countries as well, solid waste management by citizens has always been a challenge. People litter, people throw bottles here and there. So it's been always a rule. Tell people how to do things, and then government in the back end also makes arrangement for collection and dealing with it. So it's an important issue where government cannot possibly say that you do on your own and then don't look at the numbers. This has been challenged to me many times, that why Mumbai cannot do all of his wet waste as compost. And as I told you, it's not possible to deal with all the waste which gets generated. Now I understand that you are into bit of farming and doing some natural thing. You will not be willing to take compost which is generated from the wet waste from Mumbai, because it is already contaminated. You would prefer from somebody's household, if they have segregated, they have made compost, you will take it. So this is something which has to be done by the government by design. It cannot happen by default.
Correct.
And that's why a dense city like Mumbai should think of waste reduction first. And some places people have talked about waste to energy. So it's to do a combination of things. So waste to energy, so that you reduce your volume to a reasonable extent, and then wherever you have control, particularly in housing societies, you have control. You have control over some institutional bodies. There you should get pure segregated waste, so that you can do compost and it can be used.
Right. So hopefully somebody is listening in, and at least let's begin with some experimentation. There's a lot of energy in the city. There's a lot of enterprise in the city, and we must find a solution to a very chronic problem of solid waste management. Dr. Rakesh Kumar, Mumbai is an island city. It's a mega city. It's a tropical city. And the Arabian Sea is unswimmable. only God can make us go into, and it is only God who makes us go into it once a year for, Ganesh Visarjan. If it wasn't for God, nobody would go into the Arabian Sea.
Yes.
Why is our Arabian Sea literally full of, sewage? We've allocated so much money to so many different projects. Why can't we say, let's also not throw untreated or poorly treated sewage into the ocean? One is that if we say that, okay, people don't want to swim, is it okay to say, let's have a dirty sea? Is there some consequence that might come from keeping the sea this dirty for such a long period of time?
I mean, consequence is very direct. I understand a lot of people who come to Mumbai and want to see beaches. They go disappointed, and all of them apparently say that Goa is much better, whole of South is much better, right? So, and it's the same sea, it's not different. Correct. Right? So why is that it can't be kept clean? That's the question which is there. So issue is that till it was only sewage, pure sewage which was going into the sea, it was getting diluted, and it was okay to some extent. So in last 15 years, if you see the growth of use of plastic and thermocols, it has gone at least 9 to 10 times of the quantum. I am saying in terms of volume they are much larger, like their density is 8-9 times much higher. So those are the ones which are creating this filthy situation in the sea, and that is what is big cause of concern. I have tried my best to be writing and also communicating few times that all the drains of the Mumbai city which is going into the sea, you must at least put screening so that no floating matter goes, right? If it is, I'm not saying the sewage is not bad, but is something which I'll explain later. So once you have taken the visual material out, people gain confidence, they go to this sea and beaches, and then they start demanding that we want even cleaner water. So we take one step, one at a time. And in this case, what happens is that I'm glad that now BMC is started implementing some sewage disposal projects, but it's not doing the screening thing as a priority.
Correct.
So maybe when those projects get implemented, things will be better. But they have been under implementation for now 18 years.
Correct. That's very low priority. Very low priority.
That's the concern.
I think one good thing that came out of the filthy beaches that we have, it's amazing. We have beaches with golden sands. Chaupati beach is a stunning beach. Juhu beach is a beautiful beach. Even there used to, before Bandra-Worli sealing came, there used to be a beach at Mahim, and Dadar Chaupati was much broader and wider than it is today. That these are all assets to any coastal city, and not every city has beaches. But once our beaches got dirty, one good thing that happened is a lot of people came on the ground. There was a gentleman called Afro Shah, I think, who, the amount of energy that was generated in the city, youth came together, they cleaned. I mean, one is, I would like to know, do you feel that such cleaning actually helps from an environmental point of view? The social perspective is very clear. I think whatever has happened in terms of generating energy and momentum, awareness, a sense of ownership, responsibility, pride is unquestionable. But does it really help the environment? Is it that after you clean that beach, it's going to make a difference in the long run?
So all the good words that you said is actually true. That people did become aware of it. They went. Many of them are now doing in other places as well, right? So connecting people with water is something which is very nice and good. But what is important here to understand is, and I'm not questioning anything that has been done by Afroz as well as by BMC by deploying some tractor mounted cleaning system. I'm saying what is needed is that you just stop all the floating matter which is going from your drains, which you know where they are. It's not something which you don't know, and that is something which should have been done long time back. You don't need to wait for the big projects to come in.
At the source.
Yes, at source. So we, in our own lifetime, right? So I'm not going too much back in my lifetime, but I remember till 2007-8 on Chapati during rainy season, when the splashes come, water splashes, there used to be no plastic.
Correct.
right? There'll be some bhutta ka pieces here and there, but otherwise no plastic.
Correct.
But now you see how much quantum, every day 10 to 15 tons of plastic garbage is collected.
Correct.
That's the number which is available. Imagine how much more is inside the sea already.
Or in the tetrapods, which
And
it
the
has,
tetrapod,
it has to come over. Speaking of tetrapods and the coastline, projects like the coastal road or whatever reclamation we have done even in the past, we've gone over the intertidal zone of Mumbai. More recently, there's so many groups that have been doing these beach walks, and they've discovered that there are coral reefs just off the coast of Mumbai. Again, tremendous asset to have. I mean, it's a treasure to have coral reefs across the coast, and they have been found everywhere, from Haji Ali to Mahim to even Nariman Point apparently. Priyadarshini Park. Can we hope to revive this whole coral bed? Is it something that's worthwhile as an exercise, as an ambition, to imagine a future where there's a thriving coral reef of Mumbai, the waters are clean? How soon can we achieve this? How achievable is this?
So primarily, Gautam, these are naturally growing things, right? It's a saying in normal ecological terms that you just create the structure and habitat, things will happen on its own. So if you have cleaned up your beaches, you have cleaned up your water, all these things will come back to life on its own. Doing physically certain work, people have tried doing it, but it won't succeed in long run, because you have the setup which is just not supporting it. So that will be a futile exercise as of now. I think we need to fix up all the solids which are going, or the liquid which is going into the water. That is first set. The second thing which is of worrying part is that all the coastal projects, and I don't mean coastal road, I'm saying any coastal project which is done anywhere, right? When we do scientific assessment, which is the basic requirement of any project of this kind, it is important to document these. And somehow I saw that few reports which got done, they did not mention it. Some other group of people who mentioned it later on.
Right.
So we actually missed out the baseline.
Correct.
And now if you say that project has taken off, rightly so, anyone who has planned the project, they wouldn't want to now take it back.
Correct.
It's too late in the system.
Correct. Which is unfortunate, but it's never too late to start the process of baselining data. And Mumbai historically has had trouble with baseline data, whether it comes to even something like our utilities, the mapping of our utilities, so on and so forth. We didn't have a topo map for the longest time, I remember, as a city. We've covered so many topics related to terrestrial and aquatic pollution. It's time to come higher. One of your favorite topics is air quality monitoring, air quality management. Mumbai is a city that is in constant redevelopment, and we are full of dust. As a child, I used to go everywhere barefoot, on the roads, on the pavements, in the maidans, and my feet used to become brown in color. Now they become black in color. Of course, I don't any longer go on the pavement barefoot, but the amount of pollution that has entered the air because of vehicles, because of maybe factories, because of whatever exhaust and plumes are there, but also in a large way because of construction. Air quality has gone for a toss. It's become very bad, and we have the sea on two sides to flush it out, and still we are managing to have this really poor air quality. You have, I think, an unparalleled body of work as far as air quality management and monitoring in Mumbai is concerned. What are some of the big red flags for us? Are we just pushing this under the carpet and ignoring it?
I don't think it's getting pushed. It's just that we have not been able to bring out the real numbers, how to take action about it. And I would say there are some good positive things which have happened in Mumbai. So Chembur, which used to be called gas chamber at one point in time, is much cleaner when you compare with 70s and 80s data. So there are good things which have happened, and that was in those days. I'm talking about 80s, where it was planned that Chembur would be given a special status in terms of what kind of air pollution will be allowed, and there were some numbers specified for industries in that area. So there are examples which have happened in a good way. What we lost plot in recent times is that whenever we talked about air quality control systems, we always installed more monitors. And installing more monitoring, getting more data doesn't solve your problem of air quality. So most of the budget actually went into doing more monitoring, right? And that monitoring is again now diagnostic monitoring. You must be able to diagnose that what is coming, where it is coming, how long it comes, and how it spreads, right? So the first set of study which was done, 6 cities source of person study, where I was instrumental in doing that. That was the first time we put all the pizza slices together. Earlier we were only counting industries, vehicles, and some open burning. Right, only these 3 categories were there. In that thing, when we started looking at, we realized that you have many things. You have bakeries, you have crematoria, you have diesel gen sets, you have construction. Construction was never counted in earlier times.
Even crematoriums are a significant contributor?
Leave the significant part of it, I'll come back to that. Open eat outs, right? Risk suspension of dust. Mumbai, although is a city, but you have a lot of village kind of situation where people are burning, garbage to cook their food. Dharavi, another example where all kind of combustion happens.
Correct.
Right. So when you see this, there are at least 13-14 sources, all of them together, and then it becomes a very complex thing to do. So currently, I agree with you that construction is dominating, and therefore the dust levels are high, but if you see sometimes the haze which continues for 3-4 days in the city, which is up in the sky, it's not due to dust.
Is it?
It is due to the ozone formation, due to hydrocarbon and nitrogen oxides.
Right.
So vehicle related nitrogen oxides and the hydrocarbon which comes from vehicle and many other sources, in sunlight they form this so-called ozone, and they give you that yellowish haze.
Correct.
And that lasts, it doesn't go away.
Correct.
If your wind is not there, it will not go.
Oh my God.
So the reason is that this diagnostic has to be now built and take one sector by sector solution. So this is a set of recommendation which we had earlier given. Now I have also parted with whatever knowledge that I had with people who are dealing with current air quality thing. So what I've told them is that the moment you start saying that our air quality will become better by way of controlling construction activity, may actually fail. You never know, because you don't know all the sources, right? So take source by source and then do control. So we are doing a very interesting study with Hema Ramani of Bombay Environment Action Group, which we thought we will do at 2014-15, to figure out, let's solve a small sector, which is say bakery sector. You'll be amazed to, and I'm telling you this story to get the context, because the bigger problem will be even more complex. So here we have about 500 to 600 bakeries which are registered bakeries, and almost 3 to 4 times of that these are unregistered bakeries. And the fuel that is used, the cheaper fuel which is used, is all derived from the garbage that is being thrown. Okay, that quality is not known to you. The furnace that is being used is all very complex.
Correct.
Since they are not registered, government's eyes also don't go there.
Correct.
They don't even get counted in the counting process. So what we are trying to look at is fuel quality change can change this sector.
Correct.
So if you have solved one set, one group, you can say I have addressed at least 4, 5, 6% of problem, right, in terms of percent.
Correct.
And in air quality is very important to communicate in terms of other parameters also, which is the communication part. I am glad that we are sitting and discussing this like this. So many times when percent numbers are given to you, it has no meaning.
Correct.
Why? Because you sit here, you get exposed to some sources which are close to you. You don't get exposed because Tata Power is burning something in Chimbu.
Correct.
Right. So exposure and air quality is very important. So if I have 3-4 sources, I have a crematorium, I have a bakery, and I have some open eat outs, I can be highly impacted.
Correct.
I need to take care of those. So what we suggest, we have suggested in the past as well, start working on a small techs, solve smaller problems so that these results work, and then expand it.
Correct.
Because vehicle sector, for example, is the biggest sector.
Correct.
And that's all controlled from center.
Correct.
You can't possibly do too much over there.
Hopefully now we are moving towards, rapidly moving towards electrification. So even if the pollution, even if the carbon footprint doesn't change, the air quality within cities will better. Certainly be better.
Yes.
The next one is slightly for a lot of the people who are pursuing environmental studies, environmental engineering, or aspire to. It is something that has grown very beautifully and exponentially over the last 20 years since I graduated. As somebody who is an authority on all things environment and works with the government, works on complex projects, do you find the need to wear the hat sometimes of an economist, of a social scientist, of a urban planner, or is it good that you can work in the silo of environmental science or environmental engineering?
So it's a very interesting question from the angle that I have gone through this whole process, and I always felt that after passing out from IIT that you can solve a problem through technology, which is not true. So all environmental problem or environment as such, if you define carefully, you will see that all these are ingredients of it. So you can't be saying I can handle urban environmental issue without understanding land use related issues, educational issues, planning issues, all of those social aspects.
Gender issues even.
Gender issues. So all these people have to come together to address this aspect. Again, Mii River, one presentation, I am coming back to that, is the one person from Delhi. She is again a architect, and she is a so-called very environmentally conscious urban architect. And what she said was that Mii River is actually polluted and is bad condition because everybody's house backside is Mii River. Change the orientation and people will feel that they are part of this.
Correct.
And things can change, which was a big wow moment for me.
So yes, sometimes it is, the problem overtly is environmental, but on the inside it's more a social puzzle to be solved.
Yes, that's very important. So in that only, I think she used this word, in place of transit oriented development, we call it water oriented development.
Right.
So you put that water as the main focus for the city. The city itself will start getting new lease of life.
Correct. Much like the Mii River, in fact, again, there was so many cleanup initiatives that were arranged just around the Mii River, and because of that, I think all the other rivers, the Daisar, the Poisar, the Oshiwara, all of these rivers are also receiving a lot of attention. It's amazing to see. What's amazing to see is participation. We have to agree that in the last 10 years, the amount of public participation, particularly the youth, that youth which historically never went out to vote, has suddenly gotten, when it comes to environmental issues, has suddenly gotten right in there, whether it's the Greta Thunberg effect or not, I don't know, but, I'm very proud of the youth in Mumbai that he or she is standing up for their environment. We saw this in the case of RA. On a tremendous scale. We saw it on a lesser scale in terms of the coastal road. Coastal road was more communities that were living along the coastal road.
Right.
RA was more the whole city. It's very interesting to dissect these urban contestations against these large mega projects, just to understand what is the popular psyche that's going around, what motivates, what demotivates. But how do you see the rise of urban contestations, particularly from an environmental lens, as having impact on on the populace, on the city, on its future. And if you had to give some advice to this young generation vis-a-vis how to safeguard their environment, what would it be?
So I think advice is a little loaded word. I would say it's just how even I can be part of it. If I cannot be part of anything, then I can possibly say that you be the Masiha for doing it. I think very important aspect of this is that urban landscape and environment related issues is something which everyone understands, right? Little less, little more, but the context they understand. So it's important that we communicate in a way that is understood to the authorities. And when I say that, I have a separate meaning here. I have seen many people who have heard that there are some PILs when you file in the court, it leads to stoppage of the project. And therefore, there is a victory and some such things, which probably is okay. In some cases, yes. But many times what has happened is that the communication that you do with your authorities to take corrective action gets broken when you go and do this PIL business. I'm not against and for this. What is important here is that we do this communication, that this is not right, this is okay, this is what we can do, and this knowledge should get transferred to the authorities. So the reason why I see this gap which is coming is that youth, or for that matter anyone, finds it difficult to communicate with the authorities. And similarly, authorities have this fear that if they say more, these people will go to court or file some cases, so they don't talk. So this breakage of communication is actually hurting the environment most. I think we should create more focus, and academic institutions and research institutions can take lead because they are neutral bodies. They should invite authorities in their campus and they communicate. And that's where I think things will start happening. I know many people in the government, they are also well-meaning, but I see the communication is very poor.
You remember the most famous case that we did on the Mii River, the thesis, we had almost said that this is prone to flooding. We had spoken about dredging and widening. And in fact, I understand that you had submitted the report to the Urban Development Department. I think this is just so happens that you mentioned this, and I thought of this particular report on the Mii.
But I submitted to only one department.
Right.
So I was asked this question in the Chitle committee, when Chitle committee had sat and they were discussing what went wrong. One of the bureaucrat actually asked, why did you not send to so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so? I said, it was not meant to be. It was a research project which was done by one of the person, and I thought I should send to one single. They could have in turns communicated to multiple people. But yes, I fully understand that there is a communication issue.
Who should the onus be on? Because so many students will benefit if they feel the importance given to them by the government, and justifiably so. Some of them are PhD students, they are master's students doing their thesis, they are putting one whole year of research into it. Surely the government can be a little more proactive. Does it have the bandwidth then? Is it taking on too much if it starts talking to academic institutions?
No, it does not require bandwidth. It's a question of you keep the channel open for discussion. That's very important. And I have seen some very good examples, which is true in many other cities as well, wherever the civil society is very active, and it doesn't have too many of them fighting with each other, but there is a consolidated communication. People do listen. There is a possibility of doing it. And why I say academic institution and institution like YP Chavan, for example, or Mumbai First, or a similar organization, when they organize anything, people do want to listen, right? So we need to strengthen this partnership communication, and that's something which is going to benefit a lot, which has happened, Sierra Club, for example, in other countries. It has worked wonderful because they don't take position politically. We have to take position for the people, saying that this is what is required. And we go with the data, we go with information. So academic institution can bring that data, knowledge, communication, which is actually missing, right? That's very important.
We've discussed such a wide array of topics today, and seemingly we could have gone on and on and on. You are indeed a wealth of knowledge. You have been an incredible asset for Mumbai city, for the academicians, for the research community of Mumbai. You have been a constant resource, and may you continue to be there. Dr. Rakesh Kumar, thank you for being with us for this session of the Mumbai Manifesto. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I would say my answers were highly dependent on the intelligent questions that you asked. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.